Welcome back to the Roundtable. I'm Vox, and I've expressed a few times on this channel that Infinity Train is one of the most narratively ambitious series on Cartoon Network, and may end up taking the crown out of all animation currently running when you look at the networks and studios. Now that I've recapped the first two books, which you should check out those videos if you need proper context on what I'm going to say, I now want to dive into where I think Infinity Train is going, because after a certain moment in book 2, it occurred to me that Infinity Train's overarching story is using its anthology format to its advantage. And yeah, for most anthology series, you wouldn't really think the term overarching story would apply, but that's what helps make the show so unique and why I gave it the title of most ambitious animated series. I believe the story is showing us the most important passengers, those who have great ramifications on the trains and its affairs. Despite each train car being its own universe, the train in itself has its own politics and affairs. And now that we're seeing the rise of factions within the train, I believe both the conductor 1-1 and the denizens of the train will have to adapt. And much to 1-1's own dismay, adapting may not see a peaceful resolution, at least not initially, because ensuring the future of the Infinity Train will include strapping on some boxing gloves and stepping into the ring. Infinity Train already has a violent tendency, but I believe, especially if they truly do move to HBO Max, we're going to see it pushed to the limits, as the accumulation to everything going on will see a war on the Infinity Train. Even if the big climax ends up being years away, it's something that's already in sight. Why? Well, let's talk about it. Of course, spoiler warning, if you are not caught up with Infinity Train or haven't seen our Story So Far videos, go catch up and then come back. With all that said, let's dive in. So I think the first place to start is to examine why there would be a war on the Infinity Train in the first place. I claim it's already in sight, but what exactly points to that? Well, the moment that changed everything for me was during Book 2 Cracked Reflection, at the end of the episode The Lucky Cat Car, in conjunction with the following episode, The Mall Car, with the introduction of the Apex, a collective of passengers that believe the Infinity Train belongs to them, and as a result, they can do whatever they please. Led by two characters who appear to be either in their teens or early 20s, Grace and Simon, who have the second and third highest numbers on the Infinity Train, only being behind their idol, Amelia, whom, due to Grace and Simon's time on the train relative to when Amelia took over, the Apex views as the true conductor of the train. Grace and Simon being under the impression that 1-1 overthrew Amelia, and not the other way around. That the Infinity Train's purpose to help passengers and help them grow as a person is nothing more than a facade. They didn't receive a welcome message, so it must be deception. And on that note, a huge setback of the Apex, due to their beliefs being the exact opposite of what the train intended, are the numbers that they don on their hand. Being led by the two worst influences possible, the Apex believes that numbers are meant to increase. The higher your number, the higher your score. Now, I don't believe their high numbers are an exact result of Amelia taking over the train, as not only have they likely never encountered her, which we'll also touch on, but Grace and Simon actually first appeared at the end of book 1 while briefly appearing on the conductor's monitor of passengers, both of their numbers already insanely high. So I believe 1-1's return as conductor only cemented their beliefs. It only promoted the idea that they're right. Now, the Infinity Train crew did state on their official Reddit AMA that if Amelia met the Apex, she would likely be more annoyed by them than anything, especially because they're kids. And if anything, with the Apex's mentality, especially Simon, I think Amelia's rejection would only drive them further from the light. If she just brushed them off and told them, nah, I threw over the train, that 1-1 guy is actually supposed to be in charge, they would probably convince themselves that she's brainwashed, that she's given into the train's propaganda, and see it themselves to rise above her. But the most important detail about the Apex is that they're fully capable of taking over trains and claiming it as their own territory, evident with the mall car. On top of that, we know that they're capable of ransacking other cars for their resources, as seen with the Lucky Cat Car, aka the Carnival Car. So imagine how this can affect future books going forward. The train is massive, with hundreds if not thousands of worlds. So much life, even if artificial, that inhabit the car. Tulip herself only went through about 42, as cited in a Reddit AMA. But imagine passengers walking through and stumbling upon even more Apex-controlled cars. More cars destroyed and abandoned because the Apex ruined them. And I believe this is where the catalyst of the war sparks. Because eventually, the denizens are going to begin to push back against the Apex. They're not going to care if their passengers. Once we're the Apex, their lack of morals, and their corrupt values begin to spread against the train, the denizens of the cars are going to begin to take a stand. They're going to begin to fight back, and I don't believe the Apex would take it lightly. Even if Grace and Simon were somehow removed from power, they're leading impressionable children, and that's just at their current stage. They have the potential and growth growth to conquer more teenagers, more young adults, more older adults. And as a few real-world examples would probably tell you, once you leave a good enough impression on someone, you can easily influence their beliefs. So although it may be possible, as they are still mostly comprised by children at the end of the day, I don't believe disassembling the Apex is as simple as stripping authority from their leaders. It might take a little bit more legwork and maybe even a car of its own in order to fix that. But the Apex isn't the only force to be reckoned with on the train, as Book 2 opened up 2 more cans of worms. Another force who can join this battle for their own benefit that we know 1-1 would either not agree with or gets into another exponential loop is a team of rogue denizens who want to be liberated from their post. Mirror Tulip had wanted posters everywhere on the train, and now she's off it. She likely made many allies and enemies that we didn't even see. But word spreads, and if word gets off about a denizen who successfully got out of the car, more and more are going to want a taste of that. They're gonna have the desire to not just help passengers, but to fully be their own people with their own chosen purpose. That's another collective I can see growing at an exponential rate, turning against 1-1 and demanding for their own number and exit off the train. But alongside that, we also have the Chrome Car, aka the Mirror World. Their own leader, assumably being the reflection of 1-1, who, if you guys remember, never alternated between Glad 1 and Sad 1, instead having Glad 1's voice with a very stern inflection. 1-1's reflection brought in the Mirror Police in the first place, and now both of those agents are dead. While one of them was brutally grinded up into a wheel of the train by Lake, the other was murdered by Alan Dracula, whom we know was created by 1-1. As the tiny conductor remarks, he really broke the mold with Alan Dracula, something his reflection likely witnessed. The way the Mirror World would see it, officers, the enforcers of the law, were murdered in an act that was authorized and pardoned by a powerful, influential prime on the train, the leader of the train itself. That could have some serious repercussions. And I truly would not be surprised if 1-1's reflection employed even more of the Mirror Police to come after 1-1 directly as revenge. The point of this all is 1-1 is still a target. He was a target for Amelia before, but with more passengers having a greater influence on the train, just as the train has an influence on them, the stakes are only getting higher. So I believe all these individual forces would come out of the woodwork to reach the top of the train to find 1-1, and I don't think 1-1 would be completely oblivious. Word would have to spread eventually, and we know he can defend himself. He has the steward's body as pretty much his own mech, and I believe this hypothetical war would have major key players serving as leaders for individual armies and factions. Again, if the objective is to protect 1-1, we already know he has a particular ally who has the forces to support him, Atticus and the soldiers in Corginia. And although the scale will be amplified, the concept of this isn't foreign to Atticus. He has sent his people to assist in other trains before, a good example being in the episode The Unfinished Car. Not to mention, do you really think we're never gonna see Atticus again? Come on! Even if it's just a little cameo, like on the monitor in Book 2, he's gonna appear or not. Of course, Grace and Simon would lead the Apex, though I can see one of these two easily betraying the other. Reflection 1-1 would command the forces of the Mirror World, but when it comes to any potential wildcards, I can definitely see the cat being devil's advocate. After all, she states she always does the right thing. But clearly that's dependent on her own moral code. She was willing to help Amelia, but as soon as the tides turned, she was on Tulip's side. So I believe the cat would never aid the Apex. I can see her feeding intel and assistance to sometimes 1-1, sometimes rogue denizens, and other times, if not mostly, the unfortunate passengers on the train just trying to get home. But that's the thing. Should these various presences consist, I believe it's possible that eventually we'll hit a book where a passenger doesn't leave the train, and instead by the end, they decide to partake in the train's affairs, taking up a bigger role. Come on, imagine a passenger being employed by 1-1 as a proper steward, an assistant who helps other passengers on the train, while also doing their best to keep the Apex and any rogue denizens in check. And like, as crazy as it is to say, and as I'm sure this may be the deal for some members of the Apex, remaining on the train, at least for a while, may be a better option than returning home. Of course, depending on the circumstances of the passenger. For example, if they come from an abusive household, or maybe they're not in the best foster care. While they still have to face that reality eventually, the train may provide with them a prolonged safe haven and experience that'll only make them stronger when they do eventually leave the train. And I mean, come on, how sick would it be if all these groups at war with one another, disrupting the train's original purpose, results in the creator of the train stepping in? 1-1 has not recovered all of his memories yet. His own creator, his true creator, not the engine, not what he refers to as his mom, could still be a gigantic blur. But now I think I'm slipping into a different theory, so let's just nix the video here. But as always, these are just my thoughts, and and I want to hear yours. What do you think? Could there be a war on the Infinity Train? Which former denizens would you want to see participate? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, or tweet your thoughts at Roundtable Vids. And for more of my own thoughts, you can find me at OstricFox. We're also on Instagram. Special thanks to JANKYBONES for creating an awesome thumbnail. For more of their amazing art, you can find them on Tumblr at JANKYBONES, Twitter and Instagram at BoneJanky, and subscribe to their YouTube channel. Link in the description. Help Roundtable grow by either becoming a member of this channel or supporting us over at Patreon. Link in the description. If you enjoyed the video, please throw a like and subscribe to the Roundtable for more great cartoon content. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. OstricFox, signing out.